Hi, welcome to the next episode of Triggers in Spiritual Medicine. My name is Laura Bonetzky Joseph. I am your hostess with the mostest, where we address hard topics and offer spiritual medicine, a lot of times addressing the intersectionality of things that are making us ill. And a lot of times what's missing, it's the spiritual medicine. And you're not going to want to miss today's episode, because if you're like half the people out there who are going like, what the fuck is in the air? What the hell is going on? Are we gonna like get through the next several months? What's going on with the elections? What's going on with the energies? Guess what? We have a jam-packed episode filled with astrology forecasting, numerology, tarot, all of it, with my beautiful guest, Victoria, who's an amazing astrologer. And we're going to be chatting a lot of the hard things that most people in our realms are too afraid to chat about. But we're going to do it. And we're going to do it in a, just so you know, we are also very aware. And even when I do my forecasting, I do my very best to try to bring forth information that does not influence my own personal bias, because that is how forecasting should work. It's not about me using my gifts with spirit to manipulate something of what I want. It is really and truly trying to put that aside so we can see what is really showing up in the energies and in the forecasting. So here we are.
Hi,
Welcome, Victoria from
thank you so much.
Hawaii.
Yes, thank you so much. Coming at you from Maui.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So there is, so tell everybody first of all quickly just about what you do, and
Sure.
why you're so even passionate about how you bridge like the intersectionality of astrology with everything from politics to social justice and all these other things.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very passionate about astrology for two reasons. One, it's just self understanding. From a young age, I found it very fascinating. I started learning about my family members, my friends at a young age. People would come to me and, go a little deeper than just sun sign astrology. And then as I got older, I was an artist for many years and I still am, and I became very passionate, I would say 2016, 2017, when Trump took office. And I started feeling the need to warn people and to be of service in a different way. My career with art was very, making things and selling things and producing work and selling art and commerce, a lot of it. And I wanted to do service and I felt called to, and it's, part of my astrology chart is to be of service and as a teacher and a guide. And so I appreciate astrology because I actually have something I can reference that's very practical, and I can teach with a chart, and mainly that it correlates to history and cycles. And so navigating the times we're living in, I find it very useful. And it does help us cope with intense things that are happening. And I'm just not someone who believes in burying our heads in the sand. And I think astrology is a very proactive way of taking your own spiritual path and understanding that you are part of a collective. We have collective karma, and you can't just go be on an island in a bubble by yourself. And I mean, some people can, but most people cannot. Overwhelmingly, 95% of people really can't exist like
So
that.
so how do you, because I know for me, like when I typically, I channel, but I also sometimes use numerology and tarot cards to kind of back up.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like even when I did the forecasting, knock on wood, every forecast I've done so far, I've been accurate. But the one thing like I try to do, like the last election was very difficult. I think it took me like 3 months, because what I was doing was waiting for the window where it could flow and my bias wasn't my own personal bias or my own judgments or my own convictions
Mhm.
weren't gonna kind of impede on what was showing up.
Yeah.
How do you address that in astrology?
Well, I mean, I often say I do have an opinion, and I'm not always unbiased in my opinions. When I'm working with a client, that's totally different. There's no bias. It's like I could care less, really. I'm just giving you the information
Right,
and
right.
take it or leave it, spit out what doesn't resonate, etc. Right? It's very much the way I come. But when I'm talking about what's happening and my own personal activism, um, I found that over recent years, I trust me, I'm not necessarily pulling for any political candidate that's out there right now. I do believe there are some people who are good leaders, and that I supported Marianne Williamson in my vote in California before I moved here to Hawaii a couple months ago. But I also, I have been very spoken out against Trump for many years because of what I see about the astrology and the role he's playing.
So
So
let's talk about that, because
yeah,
I know we kind of chatted briefly beforehand, because I did numerology on both of them. And I also pulled cards, one for each month, just to kind of get an idea of the general energy for each month. And then I pulled one surrounding for each candidate for the election. And I also did a few cards surrounding each of their health as well.
mhm,
So I'm just curious to hear, like, what are you seeing right now, especially if you want to go like with the recent debate. I mean, this is going to come
yeah,
out in August.
yeah.
So, what are you seeing moving forward with the energies and the astrology with the current election cycle?
Okay, so we're doing this right before, 4th of July, and so this is going to air later. So basically, we're right now this week, there's several things that are very significant in the astrology that I see being reflected in this chaos right now, and this very deep worry, obviously, by Democrats and people who are not pro-Trump, for the candidate being Biden and the debate, which was absolutely terrible. I don't understand how it was planned at the time. The moon was in Pisces. Absolutely not a time to do an event like that when the moon is transiting for 2.5 days through Pisces. Pisces is
Oh,
not about arguing and debating, and it's
And
about
can
life.
I and can I just add,
Yeah,
Trump being a Gemini and Biden being a Scorpio, with the current solar activity that was
yes,
happening, and
yes.
how that could have affected
His
Biden's performance.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a couple things that I think are affecting him right now in the way he's showing up. But basically, I feel that Saturn just went retrograde and Neptune in today in Pisces. So Saturn just a few days ago, 2 days after the event. So when these big outer planets shift retrograde for like 40 to 50% of the year every year, just the week that they're shifting is really going to bring up stuff to look at. So Saturn is about leadership and the president. That's the planet that you would associate. So Saturn was in his storm phase while the moon was conjunct Saturn and Neptune, in between these giant forces. And when they're doing this retrograde motion, it brings up things we don't see, or we get extreme versions of these planets. So of
Can
course
you
we saw,
can
yep,
you explain for people that don't
yes,
understand
sure.
astrology language and lingo
Yeah.
what, like, you mean by like conjunct
Yeah, so
and
when
like
two
things like
planets are in
that?
the same degree of the zodiac. So the moon
Okay,
obviously moves around, in one lunar month, but all the other planets have their different rates of movement, depending on how far out they are from the sun. So when they align in the same zodiac degree, that would be a conjunction. They never
okay,
really go backwards in a retrograde. It's like two trains. It looks like one is going backwards when you're pulling out of the station faster than another one. That other train isn't going backwards. It just looks that way. That's the same thing.
gotcha,
Planets are retrograde. It's when they're closest to Earth also.
gotcha.
So that is important because they do have an energy. These planets represent these energies and archetypes. And then think about, we have the solar activity going on, but we have these planets like emitting their energies towards us. And so it's just, I call it wonky energy. It's like, it's not, it was a just absolutely horribly planned time for the debate. I don't understand how, because I know some of these politicians still use astrology. I don't know who planned that, but it was definitely very bad. So that was one thing, but that's just, general vibe. But in terms of Trump and Biden, they both have various health aspects over this year that do not look very good for them. One of the main things for Biden that I think is happening is that he does have Mercury in his 12th house in Scorpio and his sun as well. And Uranus is directly opposite his Mercury in Taurus. Now, Uranus and Mercury are two sides of the same coin. Mercury is our mind, how we think, our mental chatter, how we write, how we express ourselves. Uranus is the higher consciousness, the bigger perspective, getting the download, getting the channel, getting the information that you can't really explain. Boom, that energy. So Mercury's very practical. We learn in school. Uranus is you get the life lessons and the downloads in an instant in a spiritual whatever, right? But they're two sides of the same coin. Well, the biggest event of 2024 astrologically occurred in late April, April 20th to be precise. And it was Uranus and Jupiter, which is expansive and blows things up and makes things really big, in an exact conjunction, meaning they met on the same degree in Taurus at 22 degrees. So this sets off a 14-year cycle in Taurus with Jupiter and Uranus. So that's called a synodic cycle, when planets meet up in a conjunction, not the moon or the sun, the other planets. It's a synodic cycle. So we study these synodic cycles. And essentially, that happened on Donald Trump's midheaven, which is, I kept saying, it's like the tower moment. He's going to have many tower moments. He doesn't mean it's all bad, doesn't mean he's not going to do his thing. But Joe Biden has Uranus opposite his Mercury, and Jupiter was there in April setting off. And the way I see it, and many other people who are have more expertise in medical astrology, this is definitely a sign that could be attributed with his dementia rapidly declining, if that's what is going on with him, which many people speculate that is what is happening, and so that's a tough aspect. And it could explain why some days he has good days and some days he doesn't, because Uranus represents Kundalini energy, the lightning bolt, sticking your finger in the electric socket. Sometimes it can be good. It can liberate, it can free you, but it can also sting you and, mentally. That's my concern. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. It's
No,
only going to get worse probably.
My experience of working with people with dementia, for instance, with space weather, solar weather, is that it can exacerbate things like sundowning and forgetfulness and freeze. But I found the same thing as we were chatting before, is like I was looking at both their numerology and I was also looking at their health, and I'm not seeing either one of them being well.
No.
I'm feeling like there's a lot of uncertainty around Joe Biden. But I'm also seeing this, and I'm also seeing the duality card play out. And I don't know how that plays out in astrology, but that has been a theme I've been seeing play out all year, is around duality. You think of Gemini is duality right there, right? But then
I'm going to pull up Trump's chart just so you know, because I want to look at it while you're talking, but please continue.
Yeah. So when I was looking at the numerology just behind the two of them, and Joe Biden was born during World War II, but he was born on a master 22 year. And Trump was born 1946, but also a duality, so a 20 year, so 20 and a 22. So there's a lot of duality around here with both of them, but for different reasons. And with Trump, I kept feeling, when I looked at the whole numerology, I kept getting highlights of duality, shadow aspects, unhealed wounds, relational challenges, past, present, future colliding, materialistic greed,
Yeah.
With Biden, I kept feeling like, and this was showing up in the cards I pulled too, where I feel like he is struggling emotionally. He's not letting on, where he's struggling with wanting what's the legacy he's trying to leave behind? How is he going to unite everybody? And I feel like he has been leaning a lot in faith. I don't know. There hasn't been reports of him doing more prayer and church and all that stuff, but I'm actually seeing an escalation of him actually relying more on prayer and, talking, to his spirit, doing his spiritual work.
Getting signs. Yeah.
Yeah. And learning how to figure out how is he going to master this duality and how is he going to balance it when he is recognizing he doesn't have the stamina he once used to have. And with Trump, I literally got one of the cards that says loon on it.
He definitely has some triggers of things that are happening. And I just want to add this so we don't forget.
Yeah.
Saturn just went retrograde, as I mentioned, in
Yep.
Pisces, and it is making a square for all year with Donald Trump's sun and moon, because he was born on a full moon, and also conjunct his nodal axis. So he has the sun in Gemini, he's a Gemini, conjunct his north node and Uranus, all within a few degrees of each other. Then on the opposite side, Sagittarius, he has south node and moon. And Saturn is going back and forth all year, and he's sitting exactly in what we call a T square to that very, very, very important axis. And also his sun and his moon. This is very difficult for health when your sun and your moon are getting a square from Saturn. So and this is again all year, this is on him. And
Yeah, it's so weird. Like the cards that I was pulling, and as what I was saying earlier, like I don't literally when I pull cards, I don't literally see them as literal, but for some reason, spirit's having me say, no, read the word literally
literally,
on the card.
the
And
writing is on the wall. That's been my saying for Saturn.
so these are the cards I pulled for Trump. The Jaguar. The Jaguar was in the past. The Jaguar associated with the shadow, solitary, king. It's associated with like Mayan king. So like thinking king energy.
Yeah.
And it's about how do I become king, enrich myself with gold, because that's the mentality.
Yeah.
And then we have the death card and the snake energy. So which I kind of find interesting. I'm still kind of sitting with this one because I also see snake associated with feminine energy as well. So, but here it's like he's not getting what he wants. He's not, because this was all inverted. He's not getting what he wants, and whether or not he's going to have a death scare. And if he is, I feel like it's going to be within the next 2 months. And with the final card moving closer to the election, I'm feeling like he is like selling his soul to the devil, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
He
making
will
double
sell.
bargains.
Yes, and he will sell whatever he has to just to get into power. And it's not what he's not doing. He's not for the people. Nothing I have pulled says that he is for the people. Interestingly enough, with Biden, I got where he may not necessarily be doing the job. We may have had a lot of disappointments, but I'm also going with, in his mind, he thinks in his mind he is doing a service to the country. His mind, when I think of turtle, he's thinking of the United States as a whole, and what's the legacy he's leaving behind. And I feel like he is struggling emotionally with the latest SCOTUS thing. I think the SCOTUS thing has really put a huge damper. And then it's, how does he move forward? And how does he energize? So if he is going to continue to move forward, he has to find a way to energize himself if he's going to stay in the race.
Yeah, I feel that the thing about, and I have experience with people in my family with dementia, and the number one thing that concerns me about whatever his situation is his condition, is that I know that they can become very indignant, and there's a lot of denialism in families when someone is going down that path. And I am very
Yeah.
concerned about Jill Biden and her role, because it's been reported all weekend that, they don't want him to drop out. He's not listening to any of his advisors. And I don't think that's who he has been. I
Well,
do think he
actually, the
cares.
cards are showing that he shouldn't listen. He should fire all his advisors, is what all the cards are telling me, because this is also where I learned about dementia. It also can attract the greedy,
Of course.
horrible people that you don't want. I think
I
he
think he's
does have
already,
enough.
I mean, I just feel that he's been in the game so long that it's not like they're new people that have come
Yeah.
around him. It's all the people that have been around him for many, 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 many years. And maybe that's not true. I'm just concerned that his decision making, is not in alignment with what he really wants and what his real, when he says we're fighting for the soul of the nation, that has always resonated for me, because that's exactly what the Pluto return of the United States is about, which is the bigger story of what this is all about for
Yeah.
us. That
And that's the
Pluto
other card that showed up for Biden as well. So my question to you then is, because Trump also keeps referencing, and to me this is a red flag as well,
Yeah,
because I wanted to know how much Adderall or whatever he took the
yeah,
other night,
I know.
because he kept emphasizing how he's taken and passed 2 cognitive functioning
Oh, I
tests.
know.
And that says to me, you only have a cognitive functioning test if you're actually showing signs of dementia yourself, sweetie pie.
Yeah,
So
I mean, exactly. Oh, please. I mean, they both have things going on as far as I'm concerned. And this is me not being biased. Of course, I don't want Donald Trump to win. I think it's very grave. I think that's what the Pluto return is about. I think this is bringing up so many bigger issues that are not just going to be fixed if Joe Biden wins. We have the SCOTUS issue. We have lots of issues that are happening right now. But I do believe that it's very dangerous what is happening with the gaslighting, which I see going on, and telling people, oh, he's fine, that was just an off night. No, it wasn't. There's been many, many things that have happened that we've all seen. And so that's where this Neptunian, the Pisces energy, it's very deceptive. And Neptune just went retrograde today. So
yeah. What
it's
do you think?
unfortunate because we have to wait. We have to wait.
Right. What are you feeling? Because I don't know, my intuition keeps, and this has been even before the primaries, it's been
Yeah.
happening for about a year, that this year is the first time I feel in American history we could have a third party candidate win.
Yeah, absolutely. I've thought intuitively since last year that neither one of them will be president. Whether one of them gets elected and then has a health issue and has to drop out even before they take office, that's something I've seen repeatedly. I don't think Trump is going to win. I do not think he's going to win. I
Yeah.
do not think he will be voted in by our country. But I
That's
also
the card,
don't.
the cards I pulled say the same thing.
Yeah, I'd never have. I mean, what's happening for him right now also is that the Republican National Convention is about to happen, and his sentencing just got pushed for his hush money. So that's not happening in July. It's happening in September now. So that's a big deal. But Mars is going to be conjunct Uranus. So whereas Jupiter and Uranus, the biggest event of 2024, was at 22 degrees of Taurus when they met there, April 20th, now Mars is coming around, and Mars and Uranus is extremely volatile. So it's violence, political violence, etc. And that's happening on his midheaven when the Republican National Convention is happening. So I do not wish for that to happen, but I think it's insane that in Milwaukee, this convention center allegedly is allowing open carry. So I don't know what they are thinking, that they would allow guns in to a political convention. And I sure hope that changes, but that's very concerning. I would be very concerned if I were his people, that
You
putting
know,
him in that position.
it's so funny because a few days ago I felt the need to not schedule, like to reschedule the rest of my events for July.
Yeah.
and to not, and I kind of didn't get upset about it. I was just like, yeah, we'll just do it in the fall. Like, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's August, I already really, outside of one thing I do, because it's just a regular thing I do, but I'm like, I think I'm just going to reschedule the rest of July, like, as far as events goes, because
You should.
I don't know why, but I feel like there is something big coming down. I'm not getting a clear vision. I do feel, I've said this all along. Same thing like with you with astrology. I am not adverse to sticking my head in the sand.
Yeah.
I feel that the only way to protect yourself, the only way to know how to move forward is to actually face these hard truths.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and it's the only way through. It's the
The
same thing
only
with
way
healing.
through. 100%. 100%.
I mean, I'm feeling August. There's a lot of mouse energies. There's a lot of scurrying around. There's a lot of
Maybe that's when the change up is going to be.
yeah.
And, here's the big thing. Pluto is completing a very long 200, nearly 250-year cycle around the sun that began for us in our natal chart. We have a chart for the country. The most widely accepted natal chart for the United States is called the Sibley chart, which is based on the July 4th, 1776 Declaration of Independence signing in Philadelphia and 5:10 p.m. And it is that the Pluto in the United States chart is at 27 degrees Capricorn. So over the past few years, we've been having the exact Pluto return. Then Pluto went up into Aquarius. He takes a few years to transition because he moves so slow. He's in Aquarius now, but he's heading back for the last time in anyone's lifetime alive on the planet. He's not coming back for 250 years to Capricorn. Yeah. And it's September 1st through November 19th, through the election. And that means he's going to be back on 29 degrees Capricorn, which is why it's not just a United States issue. We have our Pluto return, but the fascism is on the rise because
all
it's
over.
the paragraphs, it's the corporations, it's the Supreme Court. It's happening all over the world.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny because, like, when I think of mouse, it's also the 5 of Pentacles. So that's a lot of change with money structures too, and a lot of scurrying
very financial
around.
For the United States.
But September, like, it's funny when you say September, I got the Knight of Wands, but also the Komodo dragon. Oh. So that there's a lot of, are we going to survive this mentality?
Correct. People are going to feel, I keep saying, I'm going to talk about it nonstop on my socials in my community, because people are going to feel like, oh, it's all over. We're going backwards like they are right now with these rulings. It doesn't mean you won't be feeling it until September 1st. It means it's the energy. It's very close. Pluto's at the very, very beginning of Aquarius. It's all this cusp between Capricorn, which is the old era, the old paradigm, and Aquarius is the Aquarian age. And the
can we also talk about, like, the political, what we just talked about with the election is also a mirror of all the work we're supposed to be doing on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Like all the ancestral healing, all the unpacking of toxic capitalist structures, unpacking our inner racism, unpacking our inner misogyny, all of this stuff is because I'm finding like there's going to be a breather in October.
There's going to be a what?
A breather in October.
Great.
Is that what do you feel like you
I don't know about October. I know that the whole time that Pluto is in Capricorn, September 1st to November 19th.
Yeah.
It's going to be something. And I know that the election may not be called or might not happen on that date. The regular scheduled November, whatever, there's some maybe a delay, or we have the election, but we don't have the results right away.
I feel like the Supreme Court this is actually what I just got. I feel is going to interfere with the election. I feel like there's going to be
or whoever.
Yeah. But I don't see either one. I am not seeing either one as president. If they are, they're not very long.
Exactly. So we all just have to remember it's like the bigger arc, right? And so I keep talking about, what the opportunity here is in the micro level for us,
right?
Is Okay, in 2008, approximately, so let's say 2007, 8, and 9, that's when Pluto was entering Capricorn. Okay, it takes a few years to go in and out, in and out. So it left Sagittarius where it had been for 14 years or something like that, went into Capricorn. And that era, think about your own life. Just think about what have you been through, what has been, because Pluto is also very karmic. So what is the karma that you've been unpacking, like you said? What have you been deconstructing? What have you been extracting yourself from? What have you been doing, calling back all your power? All these Plutonic themes. Where have you had your own multiple dark nights of the soul? Where have you gone down into the depths? Underworld. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. He's about unconscious, subconscious material and
Does
shadow.
Pluto, because would Pluto be the planet that deals with duality showing up simultaneously? Like, I can be depressed and happy at the same time. I can have
I think that would be Uranus.
Uranus.
Personally. I don't think it would be Pluto. Pluto's just dark. But it's also about your soul. So when he says we're fighting for the soul, I was like, an astrologer definitely gave him that, because that's what it is about. The Pluto return is about the soul of the nation. And I say we're like a dysfunctional family, obviously, the American family, and 30% of the family has gone to therapy and has done spiritual healing and has become awakened in some capacity or is on that journey, understands what that even means. And then we have some other people that they kind of get it, but they don't really want to deal. And then we have the people who are completely in denial about the abuse and the generations of abuse in the family and the patterns. And they are doubling down on denialism. And so what we're really fighting is denialism and the illusions. And I've been saying for years, Saturn coming into Pisces, he hasn't been here since 94 to 96. And now he's right in the middle and he just went retrograde. And he'll be there until the beginning of 2026 or the end of 2025. But he's wrapping up a 30-year cycle. And it's like illusion after illusion after illusion being shattered, because he is the reality planet. And he says, wake thee up. Writings on the wall. No more illusions. You're not really a democracy, the United States. I hate to break it to you. You want to be, and there's some things that are democratic, but
we've been lied to.
Wake up to your own history. Stop denying it. You know, the fact that we have his whole thing, Trump's whole thing is make America great again. That's a complete denial of our dark past. And those people
or is it a wanting to go back to putting people,
well, of course,
as slaves and
but
have
it's
women
not saying it. It's
bound.
a denial. It's like the denial of what that really means, right? Yeah. And so it's so perfect. And just the astrology that led to him, and then him. I'm always like, he's just our collective karma. He's our collective karma. Yeah. And where we need to take control, you know, and change things is, and I think the Pluto return also means we're going to have like we have to have a constitutional convention. Like we have to rewrite the Constitution, not completely, but like, yeah, we do. People do it in other countries that are old all the time. And we do need to expand the court, and we need to like, it's like all that stuff, right? And the issue is that it always just swings back and forth between the people in power. They just hand the ball back and forth. And yes, some of them make some progress at certain things, but overall, it's the game that's being shattered. And, you know, I think we've seen that a lot. So we have to just put our big girl pants and big boy pants on. And it calls for a lot of spiritual maturity with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces.
Well, that's actually a lot of the cards that I was seeing for Biden, where he is listening and asking God for guidance, you know, and
good.
And I was seeing that, you know, if he does stay in, whether he has a medication change or whatever, that I do feel like he needs to stop listening to advisors and start listening to his own instincts and inner guidance, because that's more accurate than what He's being told.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the challenge that is happening too, you know? What
Yeah.
do you feel? Because it's funny because I pulled another tortoise. So there's a lot of thinking, you know, Turtle Island here happening
Yeah,
all
Turtle
over the
Island, of
place.
course.
And you know, and it says movement through the pressures. And what I kept sitting with is movement through the pressures, but not rushing to judgment. So it's really seeing the picture from a whole, but not from afar. It's
Mhm.
from within. So and not
I'm gonna pull
rushing
his
to
chart up.
conclusions. And I feel like wait to see what's going to play out. And if you're getting anxious, if you're getting triggered, to really check on how you're handling those triggers and really work with that energy, because that's really what it is highlighting. And that's going to help you make better decisions come this fall too when it comes to the election. What would you say is the advice for folks specifically on how to move forward energetically considering these times?
I think that, okay, between Pluto going back into Capricorn, I say every single person has to go back for cleanup. You got to go take the test this fall. We're graduating from a period of time that started in 2008, approximately, in our own lives. And if you know your astrology chart, you can look at what house or houses Capricorn is in your chart, and that's going to help you hone in on the themes and how the main karma and drama and evolution and soul work, what part of your life was that in? It was in my career house, and boy, oh boy, were there things, right? And so I'm very clear. I know what the lessons were. I'm working on them, whether that's I'm writing them out, I'm reflecting on them between now and the end of the year, roughly. But it's going back for cleanup and not being totally despondent if something comes around again, where it's like, oh, not again. Like, no, no, just relax. Pluto's going into Aquarius one way or another. And we'll have our own challenges with Pluto and Aquarius, with tech, with kinds other issues. But in general, it's like a tug of war. One side is pulling to go into the past, and one side is pulling to go into the future,
That's the
Aquarius. It's going
duality. There's
back
a
and forth,
duality. Yeah,
and
that's the
it's gonna go into Aquarius. So it's like, just, no, trust, there will be progress. And then the other big thing to keep in mind is that these energies in Pisces are ending. Neptune is 184 years or something. I can't even remember. Something very long. Okay. He takes forever. He's in his home sign of Pisces. He's moving into Aries. Saturn's moving into Aries. At the beginning of 2026, the biggest thing you're going to be hearing about for the next year and a half is Saturn and Neptune in Aries, because they're going to meet up in a conjunction at 0 and 1 degrees of Aries. They're going to be sitting together for like almost a year. And at the beginning of the zodiac, right now, they're at the end. We're wrapping up all these big old cycles. So it can feel depressing. It can feel
right.
like it's
It's
never
like you're
going
not,
to
it's like
end.
you're not reliving like your trauma or your
No,
wounds, but I always say it's takes the same energy to take the boot and kick it out of you as it does to suck it right back
right.
inside of
No,
you,
you're
you know?
reflecting on how far you've come. You're
Yep.
putting it, you're taking the trash out. You're doing the healing work. You are trying when it comes up to go through these growths and experiences with grace and I say, remind yourself. I give people in readings every time little mantras or reminders. Remember, Saturn and Neptune are cleaning up the entire zodiac. They're at the very end, and they're meeting up in a year and a half, less than a year and a half, for a huge new reset. And that's why I said spiritual maturity earlier. Saturn is maturity,
What,
adulthood,
what,
boss, being in charge, being in authority, and Neptune is spirituality. And they're meeting up for everyone. The whole world is resetting with
yeah.
spiritual maturity. It's about being grounded, but also being spiritual. And we have to have both.
And here's the thing about with that also, that doesn't mean stick your head in the sand and be like
Oh,
love and light and everything is fucking nice.
no, that's
Because
that's
these
the test.
people,
That's the trap.
because the old paradigm,
Yeah.
the old patriarchy,
Yeah.
those old systems are aligning, weaponizing, building weapons and structures and changing laws to
Right, like
create
Project
stricter.
2025. They're not resting. They're not tuning out. That's what I
No.
did. I did a live yesterday
It
about
doesn't
willpower.
negate you from actually taking action.
Correct.
know?
It's reminder to be able to self-regulate, to keep yourself grounded, to really work on not escaping and not being in addiction and not being in disassociation, which Pisces will want us to do when all these energies are there that are very heavy. And so it's learning, yeah, and that's what the spiritual work is that we're doing every day. You know, it's
Right.
like being present, being in our bodies, living in the now, but not burying your head in the sand and spiritually bypassing, because we have things to face. And no matter who you are, you're part of this collective karma, and you chose to be here now. So,
True. Yeah, I mean,
oh,
we're
it
here.
is
We're
being of
here.
spiritual service to care.
Yes.
And the growth edge that feels so good for me personally over the past 5-6 years, especially in the height of the panic and just like, about Donald Trump in the beginning to now, it's like, I see how all these sides and all these power structures have all worked together to bring us to this moment, and how a lot of us have been very privileged in, our lives in America, and not everyone, but a lot of us have. I certainly have. And not to say I haven't had hardship in my life, but I've had a lot of privilege, and therefore I owe it. I owe it to my family to do the work and be of service in the way that I want to do it, and the way that's in alignment with my values. This whole alignment in Taurus was about your values. Uranus is the future, Jupiter is inspiration and faith. And it was in Taurus, setting a 14-year cycle off. That is saying new earth now, not down the road, we'll go green down the road. No, start doing the finding your community, growing your own food, being more connected to the earth, needing less, buying less, supporting systems of local trade, local farmers market, local,
Less
bartering.
less plastic, less
Less,
plastic,
oh,
less plastic,
exactly.
less
It's like
plastic.
it's now.
Yeah.
And it's building the new earth now.
Yeah. It's not, hey, well, I don't have time to do it right now, maybe next year. No, because
Well, one thing that I intuitively want to mention, because it's come up a few times and I just dropped into my head, is that one thing that could be happening is a major climate change event with Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus kicking it up. And Uranus has already been kicking up climate change in the past 8 years, 7-8 years that it's been in Taurus. And now it's with these energies and Mars coming along, and these hurricanes. It's just, there's probably more things. And let's hope, again, there's a tipping point. There's a tipping point of, we just had SCOTUS rule that Chevron deference case saying, no more experts out there. The courts will decide all of these issues in favor of the corporations on every single level. And, I do believe there are plenty of people on both sides who can be brought into this unified movement for the environment and for justice against the corporations, because they're destroying everything.
I've been seeing a lot of the readings I've been doing for people who are in some of those sectors, and I feel like it's the new corporations versus the old corporations. The old good old boy corporations are the ones that don't want to change. They want to bring in, the big power boys. And it's the younger corporations that are run, specifically ones that are run successfully by the under 35 generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get it. And they're building models with the environment and climate in mind and sustainability in mind.
Unfortunately, the Supreme Court rules all, and they said, we don't care. And so that is positive, and I believe that as well. But I also think that doesn't, when the authoritarianism and it's the plutocracy is what it is called. It's the plutocracy.
Right.
It's dark money all over the city. It's the military industrial complex and the environmental damage that the military industrial complex does to the planet is insane. It's the number one thing in the entire world that
Biggest
causes,
polluter.
yeah, the biggest polluter, yeah, is the military. And all of that, you know, that whole thing is being exposed. And so I really love seeing the climate activists. Those are my favorite TikTokers that just
Yeah.
go disrupt. They just go disrupt wealthy people nonstop, like super billionaire people
Well,
nonstop.
the podcast that just came out in July, this July,
Yeah.
like a couple days ago,
Yeah.
was an activist at Standing Rock. So she's so this is where it's at. And
Well, I hope that I'm sure there are people who are planning their whole rest of their summers around harassing the Supreme Court members who put these horrible decisions out. You know, I think they should not be given a moment of freedom at all. And especially when we heard the recordings come out from Justice Alito's wife and these horrific, you know, Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife helped coordinate the insurrection. And then Alito's wife, you know, very homophobic, racist, you know, making statements publicly on you know, someone was secretly recording her, but at a public event, you know, and then Alito saying, yeah, no, we can't split things down the middle. We need to go aggressive. We need to give Trump or any president immunity to do whatever they want.
I want to add,
Yeah.
just speaking of the Supreme Court, people have a misconception of what the overturning of Roe was about. It actually had nothing to do with abortion. And 100%, the reason why they overturned, and I learned this from a colleague of mine who's a constitutional lawyer who tried to sue the Biden administration to force them to publish the ERA to counteract that decision, because that decision was based on the fact that they didn't see women as a person, meaning women are secondary citizens. So for women, I just got to ask you, how can you vote for a man who basically put Supreme Court justices in to say that you are no longer have constitutional rights behind a man? You have rights behind a man.
It's insanity.
You know,
I don't know. Honestly, I look at people who have been in that position and white women who got him elected, and it's just a sad, it's a sad consequence of the patriarchy. And, you know,
but their women are still wanting to vote for him. Like, it's just
that's what I'm
nuts.
saying. And so, but when you're in that reality and you're living in that reality, most of those people are under like mind control of their husbands. And I don't think, you know, I think it's a consciousness issue. It's a consciousness issue. It's like you can't understand because you're not at that consciousness level. And it's so hard to fathom how someone could vote, you know, because they're doing it for their husbands or their daddies. And
it's
you
just
know,
people
I've known a lot of people in the
realize.
Midwest who I grew up with who are like this, and they're like, they appear to be robots, and it's why I live in Hawaii and I've got away. And I mean, you know, no insults to anyone in the Midwest because I know there's really modern, progressive, conscious people there, but in general, it's a system, you know, and I think there's just people who haven't escaped the system yet. And so then also they are preying on religious people, right? And the whole abortion issue, right? You're right. It's not really, they decided in the 70s or 80s, they were going to make this an issue. And then when 9/11 happened, that's when the evangelical movement really exploded. And people who used to be Catholics or just Protestants became radicalized evangelicals. And a lot of it was they used racism and bigotry and xenophobia to lure them in and fear. And then you have the whole 30 years of Fox News. And all those people all these people I grew up with, they were not like that. Their parents were not like that.
The Zionist movement's the same way. People think the Zionist is just about the Jewish, but it's the Zionist movement's also Christian.
Right,
So it's like,
right. And
you
so
know,
then right. And then you have the Christians who support it because they want the end times. They're not really supporting Jewish people. They just want the end times. But then you have the people who support it and they're not religious either. It's just about the money and the power structures with the money. And so, yeah, it does take someone who can have difficult conversations and look at things that are hard to look at to even be able to see that it is very nuanced. And so I was complaining on Instagram Live yesterday, or just saying, I can't believe how like people don't have willpower, and where is the immediate response is, okay, I'm going to vote blue in November. That is not enough. That's months and months away. You got to be doing, we got to be
it's
doing this.
getting in your community. It's getting, you have to organize locally, and it's the ripple
Correct.
effect.
That's
You
right.
organize, take action local, and
Yes.
then you go regional, and then you go national. You can't impact national if you're not impacting local governments.
Correct, correct. And also Pluto and
I know that from
Aquarius.
doing activism for domestic
Yeah,
violence for 20 years. Like,
right.
if you don't have a relationship with your state senators and being a part of that whole process,
Yeah,
you're a snooze. I'm sorry.
right. And therefore, and where I often speak out is about like, you have a responsibility, especially if you're privileged and you have a responsibility, Pick a topic, any topic that you care about, and devote half a day of work per week to that cause. Can you give 4 hours per week to the environment? Can you give 4 hours a week to, or insert whatever, but like, or one day a week you do this, or da da da. It's like, that's where we need to be. And the Pluto and Aquarius movement, era, it's 20 years long. So
Well,
as of November
see
19th of
that
this
happened
year, that's 20 years.
I mean, that happened what, in the 70s or whatever, where it was all pre-planned. It was remove the family structures. There's a corporate relocation, which fractured families and
Yep.
fractured community structures. And then it was take away, take away, take away. And it's like, now women can't survive unless they have a daycare provider. And I'm like, wait a minute. It used to be your aunt, your mother, your grandmother all helped raise while you were at work or
Village.
whatever. You weren't doing it by yourself.
Correct.
And we have to go back, and I tell my clients all the time, I go, it's either going to force us to reset, or you're going to have, if you do it on your own, it'll be easier and less painful than if
Correct.
you're forced.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. And I kept saying with the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus, saying, because I did like a 30-day challenge to get people prepared for it, to think optimistically, think outside of think of the possibilities. How do you want to set the tone in this arena of your life for the next 14 years? Well, it's the choose change before change chooses you.
Exactly.
Get on board. If your life is perfect and you don't need to change anything, great. Then you have more time to give to the stuff out there. But if you are like most people, I do need to make some changes. I might need to relocate. I might need to get out of this environment. I might need to end this marriage. I don't want to double down for another 14 years, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is what people have been going through, and changes in their vision for the future. And in Pluto and Aquarius is saying, you must find community. We have to evolve into community. And so right now, part of the reason why everything's about the borders and the walls, and like, this is all Pluto at the end of Capricorn. Saturn ruled Capricorn, is about boundaries, hard walls. Now Saturn's in Pisces, dissolve, right? And we know we're having that big reset in a year and a half from now with Saturn and Neptune at 0 Aries. So therefore, everyone should remember, we are sifting and sorting. We are ending things. We are letting go. We are clearing karma. At the same time, we're building the new. It's
Right.
having one foot over here, and you take breaks and you pivot, and you're just not stuck in the past and trying to hold on and maintain and ignoring the writing on the wall and just doing the same things because you don't want to change and it's easier to do this. And you're not doing that, and you're doing it proactively. You're letting go. You're knowing, oh, I don't really want to end this thing, but I know I need to. And you're doing it over this year and a half. And then you're saying, oh my God, how am I gonna like really like set myself up for like the next major cycle with this Saturn Neptune thing coming in Aries? It is a major opportunity. So
It
there's
is
some of
huge.
it we don't know what's gonna happen, but
So
we do
speaking of
know.
that,
Yeah.
how, if somebody wants to work with you to figure out how to set themselves up,
Yes.
how would they
Sure.
find a way to work with you? How do they, what would be the
You
best
can
way to reach you?
only book a reading with me directly, where we meet on Zoom, or unless you're in Hawaii and you want to come in person, in Maui specifically. I've started having people come, which is great, and getting to meet people from all over. But victoryastrology.com, or you can find me at Victory Astrology on Instagram, and there's a link to my website to book. But I will never DM you. You will never hear beloved out of my mouth, and you will never here, dear beloved, yeah, you need a reading, those kind of things, with the fake impersonations. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah,
the
thank you.
scammers, which I think is also the patriarchy being afraid of the people that are the way showers, you know?
Oh, absolutely. They are doing their best to oppress and block content, and oh well. And I'm also going to be launching my own app, which I'm developing right now. That's going to be called Victorious. And it's just about using astrology to master your own victory and be part of the changes that are happening on the earth, and really unity through astrology. I believe there is a conscious revolution happening. I've been saying that. I used to have a business card in like 1999 that said conscious revolution with my name. That's all it said. And I would give it out to people in bars and restaurants and places. And they'd be
Oh
like,
my
what
God, you're so
does it mean?
funny.
I mean, it means wake up. That's what we're here to do. We're here to wake up, and that is the revolution, is waking up
Mm.
and then becoming conscious and then participating in this great shift that we're living through.
Yeah, we all chose to be here and incarnate in the planet this time. It's just a matter of finding where our piece of the puzzle fits into the bigger piece, you know?
Great. And I used to
So,
ask spirit all the time, what would you have me do? Let me know. You know what I'm good at.
yeah.
You know where my skills are. I know these are the things that I like, and I'm putting the effort towards these things, and these are reflected in the chart as like things that are good for me. However, I also want to know what you think. Let me know. Put me in alignment with people who are supposed to be on my path. Put me in places where I'm going to be awakened, and I am going to get information, and I am going to see the writing on the wall, because that's what we're here to do.
Well, yes, that is exactly what we're here to do. It was such a joy having you.
Same.
And
Thank you so much.
for those who are listening, make sure that you subscribe, share, comment, do all those good little techie things to help, share this
Yes.
podcast out if you like it. And if you would like to support, please consider becoming a Patreon member for as little as $5 a month to help support and cover our expenses for this. So this has been an absolute blast and something that is needed. It's a hard conversation that sometimes not everybody is comfortable. So I really appreciate this and thank you so much. And until next time, until Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, have a good day, everybody.
Bye.